I'm class of 1974 from Foothill High School, but yay! But Kevin Lamp was nice enough to invite me to MC this tonight and today, and so I don't know. I forgot to DVR the games. So thank you very much, Kevin, for taking my Sunday away from me. But that's all right. Anybody else want to find a seat, or are they all taken? Or come up a little closer here, because Father Nick is going to say grace for us here in just a moment. As a matter of fact, why don't we do that now, Father?
You want to do that?
Yeah, why don't we do that now? So everybody take your hat off.
Oh, wow.
Here we go.
Even though we bless the meal as we eat it, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Loving God, thank you for calling us together as Bosco Braves and Joseph's Jesters. And at the same time, Lord, as we share this meal together, may you continue to keep each one of us and our loved ones in your loving embrace through Christ our Lord. Amen. Saint John Bosco,
Pray for us.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
Why don't we have Dan Morvick come up here? Dan Morvick.
Dan Morvick, come on up, buddy.
With Tip, who lives down the street.
Hey, look, he's got a beer in his hand.
Hey, good. I got it from Brother Nick. Hey, very good, Dan. That's Nick Brandon.
Yeah, see, that's not surprising.
Right here.
A beer in Dan's hand. Now, why don't we just take a seat? Do this like it's a real show. How about Dan Morvick, everybody? See, I've got some notes here. Even though I got to meet you in person the other night, so down in Laguna Hills, it was a pleasure to meet you. And even though you're a Trojan, I can forgive that because we're supposed to forgive, right? Okay. So you're CIF Player of the Year, what year?
74, 75.
And so that had to be something. There's a lot of. I remember this.
Turn it up. Volume.
Volume?
We're talking. We're getting old.
Okay, here.
You know, the stuff actually
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
How about your kid?
Give that one to Kevin.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Okay, there we go. Can you hear me with this one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so
I'm
you want
on.
that right there, just like that.
You got it.
Okay. So Dan, what was it like? There was a lot of great players back then in the mid-'70s, and you came out on top in the CIF.
Well, yeah, but it didn't come easy too. I mean, Bosco had some times in, playing with Ed Montez and Tim Ellis. We had some teams previous to that. My sophomore year, that we went 5-4. We had a lot of good athletes, but we didn't really, come to play every day, and it was frustrating. So my coach, the next year, Coach Nassik, he said, "What do we need to do to change this program?" And I said, "I think we need new uniforms." And he goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I think if we change the uniforms and create a different attitude, maybe everybody will start feeling better." And that's when we went to the darker blue and the white. And I said, "Okay, Coach, so that's great." He says, "I have to figure out a way how we're going to buy these uniforms." So I said, "Well, let me know. We'll talk about it. We'll get together. We'll see what we can do." So 2 days later, he came to me. He says, "Hey, Dan, we're going to have to go around selling candles door to door to get the uniforms." And these were the long, tall candles, and you had to sell like 2 boxes. And we just had to stand in line in the varsity club room and start grabbing your candles and go home and start selling them. Well, by God, we sold enough. We went on a trip down to San Diego for Psycho-Cybernetics. It was all learning about how to throw the negative out and garbage out and garbage in. And so we came back, and that year we were 11-0 going to the semifinals against Simi Valley, and we lost. And in that locker room, it wasn't a good atmosphere, as you can tell. Like, we wanted to go all the way, and it was against Crescenta Valley. And I looked at Steve Scully. He was my wide receiver, and I said, "Steve, I don't like this atmosphere. We're going to change it. We're going to go away next year. I'm going to break this up." So I stood up and I said, "Hey guys, I don't like this. Next year we're going to go all the way for you seniors, because I know what it took to get to the semifinals. And so we had to dig down again, and so we went to the finals that next year.
All right.
And that's what led us to the Fog Bowl.
Yeah.
I still
So
have the candles.
how many were there in the Fog Bowl?
They're for sale.
Okay.
You're supposed to
Did
sell
you,
it.
did you have any leftover candles for the Fog Bowl?
I don't even think the candles would have worked at that time. That's how bad it was. It was the first and the last Fog Bowl ever. We were playing South Hills.
Oh man, they're big guys.
Yeah, we were a passing team. We had dominant running game. They were a running team. In practice that week, my wide receiver Tim Boersma, he was a junior, and I know they were going to start keying on Steve Scully. So I had Tim Boersma late night, every night, just running a 98 out. Everybody was off the field. I'm still running 98 out, and he's just bent over thinking, Dan, I can't do this anymore. And I said, Tim, I tell you what, let's just keep going. I don't feel real good about this. I need 5 or 6 more of these, and when you turn, that ball's going to be right there. And when I get in the game, that first play of 98 out, we're going to score. But when I run it, we're going to run it right, and we're going to score. So in the game, Corsetta Valley, we kick off to them. They get the ball to the 32-yard line. They run one play, they fumble, so we get the ball. I hand it to my fullback, Wayne Thompson, got a couple yards. I looked at everybody in the huddle, and I looked at Tim. I go, Tim, 98 out right now. I said, guys, block, give me good protection inside, and we're going to score. As soon as you make your turn, you're going to score. So we ran the play, drop back, boom, touchdown, 7-0. You know, and there was a battle in the first half. I think the score was 13-7, and then we came on the field at halftime, and I mean, you could hardly see the announcer's booth up top, and the fog came down, and by the end of the third quarter, the fog was so thick I couldn't see the down markers, and then in the top of the fourth quarter, I couldn't even see outside my tackles. It was one play, I took an option play and I started running, I slipped and fell and I went down, I got up and the referee was standing right there. I wanted to get up and keep running. And then the timing, you know, back then we practiced hard. I mean, it created a standard for Bosco. One of the plays I dropped back, I told Steve, I go, Steve Scully, just run a 98-9 out. I'm just going to throw it. Our timing's down, let's go. I dropped back, I threw it in the fog. I didn't know where it was going. The whistle blew, we ran to each other. I go, did you get it? He goes, yeah, I caught it. I go, great. It was frustrating. It was disappointing the fact that, not so much that we lost, didn't have a chance to win. And, but we were proud to be there, first time in the Coliseum, and it wasn't my last, so it was good.
Oh yeah, I bet. That sounds great. Now, what about the college recruiting process? Tell us about John McKay coming around.
Well, yeah, it was just being recruited from all over. John McKay was from USC. Recruiting day was February 8th, my birthday. He pulls up in a limo with the running back coach, and he just pulled up to the house. And 8 o'clock in the morning, gets out, goes to the house, dining room table, puts a piece of paper on the table. He just signed. Him and the coach just walked out, got in a limo, and went back to school.
Did they give you a ride to school?
No, yeah, they gave me a full ride.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right, and then the USC days didn't go exactly the way you had envisioned it.
No, it wasn't. I came in as a quarterback. My freshman year, I backed up Vince Evans. He was a junior. So Coach McKay, he said, "We're gonna, you're just gonna stay behind Vince." I didn't play any of that year. The only play I ran 3 plays in our bowl game. Vince got hurt, and I was on the sideline just kind of warming up. It was freezing cold. It looked like it was going to snow, and Vince got hurt. And I was just kind of throwing the ball, and Vince was coming off the field, and John McKay turned around with his derby hat on, his trench coat, and he just kind of turned and he says, "Morvick, I need you in there." Talking to me, coach? So I just ran in there, and first play was a 28 pitch right to Ricky Bell. Next pitch was inside give to Mosi Tupo. It was 3rd and 3. 28-9 pitch to Ricky Bell, left, first down. Vince came running on the field. I gave him a high five, put my coat on, and that was my freshman year. Then Robinson came in, Vince was going to be a senior, and he goes, "I want you to redshirt." I said, "Okay, so we're planning for the future now." So then they brought in a new coaching staff, a new quarterback coach, and offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. And then Robbins called me in his office at end of that redshirt year and said, "We're going to go with Paul McDonald next year." and you're going to back him up. And I went, oh man, I'm out of here. You know, I put my time in, everybody's telling me what I'm going to be doing. He goes, no, don't make any rash decisions. So a couple weeks went by, 2 weeks before we're going to travel to Houston. And he says, hey, come on in, we'll talk to you. And he says, we don't want to go out and recruit another defensive back. We want to move you to strong and weak safety. We like your quickness and speed. We want you to move in with Ronnie Lott and play with Dennis Smith, and you'll fit right in. So I had to make a 5-minute decision, and I said, I'll go with it. It was a tough choice, mentally, physically, psychologically, and especially when you go into a secondary and there's this white boy coming back there, and the black boys are saying, hey, Mark's not taking my job. But it was an attitude you had to create, and we created a relationship. It was one of those where we bonded well, and got a lot of playing time as a junior, senior year, special teams, and we only lost 6 games when we were there, so the camaraderie was there, and just an opportunity. It was just a blessing to be a part of that atmosphere.
Oh, I bet it was. Those are some great years. The thing I do want to know is that, what do you remember about a guy named Dwight Slaughter?
Dwight Slaughter, yes. I met him today, again, playing against him in Verbonday, him and his teammate Lewis Brown. I stole a ball from in a play, and I was down the court one-on-one with Lewis Brown. And I passed the Slaughter, and I was going one-on-one with Lewis, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to the hoop, and this guy's going to put it in the stands. So I thought, well, I can't just drive in the lane, I'm going to take a jump shot. And I took it way to the top of the key, and he still blocked it in the stands. So, there was exciting times being able to have the opportunity to play with Kevin, and then Mike McGuire in basketball, so try to make as much as I can out of high school and play as many sports as I could, and then just kind of, I love basketball. Basketball was my game, but I thought in my career, 6'2", a white boy, that football was going to, that's where I had to go.
Yeah, well, that's when you could do that, play 3 sports back then. You can't do that. They won't let you do that anymore.
No, it's tough. Today's things are becoming more specialized. Individual positions are having special coaches, individual coaches for every position, and the level. I saw Scott Nason. He was my offensive guard today. Back then, not today, but he could be. No, he was 165 as an offensive guard, and that's how cool it was. 200, 165, 190, and 215 maybe by Kirk Jondo. That was my offensive line, and if we look at it today,
receivers aren't even, they're bigger than that now.
No, it's incredible, the abilities, the strength, and the quickness and speed. That's what it's about.
I call television games in the South Bay, and there was a kid for Lusinger High School. He's a junior, and he's already 230 pounds, 6'5", as a lineman. So I know what you're talking about there. So, well, hey, want to thank Dan very much. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Hey, Ed, I want to buy your candle. I lost one.
So
No, thank you, everybody. It was great seeing everybody. And Kevin, right on. Dennis, happy birthday. All right, let's have a good time.
That's right. Tom Gamboa up here. Tom, a special guest today. You want to come on up here? So, doing great. How are you?
Good. It's always good to get a chance to come back to Bosco. When I was not much older than some of the people I was coaching and teaching, I had just got done playing myself when I was hired at Bosco. And it was 3 of the fondest years that when I look back on my life. And I was there at a great time when the sports program at Bosco was really blooming, and I was a benefit of a lot of guys that are here tonight. I think like half our team that went to the CIF quarterfinals is here from the 73 team. So it's just great to see these guys again, and it was just those were fun years.
Oh, I bet you. And you graduated from Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks, and then went up to Santa Barbara, even though you probably could have gone right into minor league ball.
Yeah, well, I grew up a Trojan fan, and
I'm sorry.
I was. I know you're Bruin, but for some reason I always liked SC. When I got out of Notre Dame, Rod Dado back in the '60s, LA City College was the feeder program for SC. They wanted you to go to JC and then come into SC, and I had a chance to have a full ride to University of San Diego and UC Santa Barbara, and my best friend at the time was headed to Santa Clara, and when Santa Barbara gave us both a full ride, we decided to go there.
Hey, why not? That's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it was really good. I got a chance to learn a lot of baseball from Dave Gorey, who was in the College Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame and went on to have success at Pepperdine and took them to the World Series. I got a chance to play for him for 4 years, and that was a great experience. And a lot of what I taught over the years, both of my players at Bosco and the 11 different clubs I spent with in pro ball, came a lot from what I learned from Dave.
And is that why you wanted to, or caught the coaching bug, or when did you know that you were going to be a coach and an instructor?
I think the first couple of weeks that I played pro ball, I realized that pyramid gets steeper and steeper. I had never struck out twice in a game in my life until I faced a guy that Dennis probably knows here. I faced a guy named Dave Lemanchek that was the first I think he won 13 games for the Toronto Blue Jays, and one night he struck me out 3 times, and I thought, I'm going to start focusing on coaching, because I think the aspiration of getting to the big leagues is not going to happen. But certainly when I came to Bosco, and those 3 years coaching baseball, the teaching part was okay, but I knew I found my passion was to continue in baseball, and fortunately, I was able to do it for 44 years professionally. So
wow,
it was a
44
good life.
years. And from high school to major league, and what? I know you were in the minor leagues as well. A lot of great teams. Brooklyn Cyclones. That was the last team you managed.
That's right. Yeah, it was fun. I retired once, and when my mom was terminal, I retired in mid-season from the Angels in 2011. And in 2014, Paul DePodesta, who was a GM of the Dodgers at one time, but him and I worked together at San Diego, he talked me into coming to Brooklyn. I told him for 1 year, but there were so many diehard Brooklyn Dodger fans still in the New York area, and in my whole career in the minor leagues, I always got the shitty parks from my era, and never got a good one. And then when I got with Brooklyn, they had a state-of-the-art ballpark, and we drew 7,000 people a night. So it was enough fun. I did it for 3 years before retiring for good this time.
You sure?
I think so.
So the door is open. So Braves, maybe they needed an instructor to come on.
Well, we'll see.
Well, so enjoy your retirement.
Yeah.
You look great, but do want to bring up that one of the most unfortunate situations, and I was working for an NBC affiliate in Quincy, Illinois, when you were attacked on the field at U.S. Cellular Field, a.k.a. Comiskey Park, and where you were ambushed by Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, that was 2002. Sometimes it seems like just yesterday, but unfortunately, we were in last, and the White Sox were second to last. The game didn't mean anything, and 2 crazy guys migrated from the right field bleachers down behind our dugout and climbed over that little railing that Dennis is well familiar with in Chicago, and attacked me from behind. And my bad luck, it was a nationally televised game, and with the advent, in my era growing up, you got to see the Dodgers 9 times a year when they played at Candlestick, and that was it. But now with ESPN and Fox Sports, I think that incident was shown thousands of times because of the combination of post 9/11 and sports and violence and just everything. And I was naive enough to think it was going to go away the next day, and a couple years after that, one of my friends called me up and he said, "God, you've really made the big time." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You were the final answer on Jeopardy tonight." And I thought it was a joke. I said, "Is there a punchline?" And he goes, "No." He goes, he said, "My wife and I watch it every night. The final category was sports." And they asked, "Who was the coach that got attacked on the field?" And he said, "Some guy got it right." And I said, "That guy needs to get a life."
Well, hey, that's something right there. How many guys get to be the final answer on Jeopardy?
I guess.
Well, that's great. Well, if they would have attacked you from the front, they'd probably still be in the hospital or worse, right?
Yeah, well, it was just just too. It was a shame that it having worked for the Cubs for 5 years and knowing what a great sports town Chicago is, it was a shame to give the city a blemish for the idiocracy of two individuals. So I tried to make that clear because you can't find a better sports town than Chicago. I mean, when it's Cubs, White Sox. It reminded me of my days managing in Latin America. I mean, people are getting in fights in the stands during BP. Because for those of you I had never been to Chicago until I got hired as the third base coach there. My dad had grown up and told me stories, but only when I got there did I realize that, wait, if you're a South Sider, you're born into Chicago White Sox territory, and if you're North Side, you're a Cub, and never the two shall meet. And guys, I had a long tenure managing Latin American big league ball players down in, when we have our winters, it's major league season in Latin America, and I spent 9 years in the city, Mayaguez, and San Juan was our rival, going against Juan Gonzalez and Carlos Delgado and Roberto Alomar at the peak of their careers. We had a rivalry much like what I ended up experiencing when I got to Chicago, so I was ready for it.
Oh, and then the St. Louis Cubs rivalry, that's like a high school rivalry almost.
Yeah, when we went to St. Louis, and I was talking to some of my former players here about meaning the Cubs, we were playing the Cardinals the day that McGwire hit his 61st and 62nd home run. And as a kid, when TV was black and white, I saw Maris hit his 61st, and I never thought in my lifetime I'd see that happen again. And to see McGwire do it against us in a sea of red. When the Cubs go to St. Louis, you feel like you're at a Nebraska football game. I mean, standing in the third base box is 52,000 people all dressed in red, and you're in Cubby blue. You feel like an outfielder with a paisley mitt. I mean, it's out of place. But that was quite a thrill to see McGwire do that against us. And ironically, the next week, we were back in Chicago, and Sosa hit 3 in one game, 60, 61, and 62. And in the shower afterwards, he came up to me and he said, "Jesus, Tom, you could have been a little bit more enthusiastic when I came around third. I mean, I hit 62. I said, "Jesus, I saw that last week." That's yesterday's news.
That's old news.
Yeah.
Well, during that time, you and I must have run into each other in the hallways there at Wrigley or Busch. But great to see you again. Well, what was it like in the international game? I mean, you've done it all in baseball. There, you coached the Israeli team in the World Games.
Yeah, well, I didn't have any experience in international baseball. I admired people that did, and the week of my retirement, Jerry Weinstein was a longtime friend of mine, and he was going to manage the Israeli team. And to be a player on the team, you had to be of Jewish heritage. But they wanted the coaching staff to be all Jewish, and I said, "Hey, Jerry, you know I'm Catholic."
Gambo is a Jewish name.
But the bench coach's mom had unfortunately gone into hospice, and he wasn't going to partake. And Jerry said, "Hey, I've cleared it with the Israeli people. I want you to be a part of this." And little did I know, it turned out to be just a great icing on the cake, because Israel had never even qualified for that tournament before. And we won a tournament in Brooklyn, beating Great Britain and Brazil to get into it. And then when we got in, we were the Cinderella team, the lowest rated. And when we beat South Korea on opening night in South Korea, the government asked their manager to resign. They took it as such an embarrassment. We were lucky. We beat them 2-1 in 10 innings, but we did win. And then the next day we beat Chinese Taipei, and they were rated number 5 in the world. And then the Netherlands had 6 major league everyday players on it, but we caught their worst starting pitcher, and we ended up winning the tournament. And we put a lot of money in our pocket. And I didn't even know we were getting paid for it. But then when people found out how much was at stake, then we went to Japan and we beat Cuba, and then that's when the whole world, especially the people of Jewish heritage in New York, we made the front page of the New York Post. They were referring to us as the David against Goliath, but then we had our comeuppance playing the Netherlands with their big league squad. They blew us out, and then we did come one game from playing the U.S. in Dodger Stadium, but we played Japan scoreless for 6, but they beat us 8-3, and that was a good way to go out. A lot of fun.
And I heard that there was a run on Manischewitz and Mocha David during that time period.
Well, I know they made me an honorary Jew for the month. So,
Very
you know, I said Mazel Tov to everybody, and where's my check?
All right, so if you made that much money, drinks are on Tom.
Hey Lou, I got one story I have to tell the guys. Before.
Sure.
I've never spoken in front of a group without telling a story, as Kevin well knows. But you know, when you're with the Cubs, they have this, because of WGN. Like I said, I didn't know until I became the third base coach, this national following. I mean, you can't walk down the street, as Dennis knows, even as a coach, without everybody knowing who you are. And in the wintertime, they have a caravan throughout Illinois to Moline and Springfield, and they call them hot stove banquets. So, you know, and when there was no action on the field, Artie Harris, the producer, was always showing me at third flashing signs. So my face was visible. So at these banquets, I told a story. It's visual, so I'm not going to use a mic. My voice will carry. But my favorite banquet story, and it revolves around baseball. And in fact, I told this to the team when I became the third base coach. The day before the exhibition season started, I had to go over with the players what all the signs were going to be. And so to get their attention, because I knew they wanted to get in and have lunch, I said, guys, hey, it's going to be important that when Riggleman gives me a sign, that, you know, that we pick it up and know what we're doing. So my way of getting my point across is always to inject a little humor. So I said, guys, given the sign, and I want all the women to bear with me on that. It starts to look to go astray, just stay with me till the end. All right? But I said, given the signs as a third base coach reminds me of a story I heard about a woman that got on a bus, and she didn't say anything to the driver, she just stood there and did this. And the driver shook his head no, and he answered her with this. And the woman gave the driver a strange look, and she stood there and did this. And for the second time, the driver shook his head no, and he answered her with this. And the woman gave him a very dirty look, and she stood there, and she cupped her breasts. And for the third time, the driver shook his head no, and he stood up, and he grabbed his crotch. And the woman gave the driver a very dirty look, and turned her back, and lifted one leg, and grabbed her ass, and walked off the bus. And at that point, a woman on the back of the bus came up front and said to the driver, I think you were very rude and nasty to that woman. I'm going to report you to the bus company and get you suspended or fired. And the driver said, ma'am, I've been driving this same route for 23 years. I'm damn near ready to get my pension. I've never been rude or nasty to anybody. What you're missing is that woman was a deaf mute, and she was asking me questions in sign language, and I was just giving her the answers. And this gal stood there very disbelievingly, and she said, I saw those obscene gestures that you made from the back of the bus. And the driver said, ma'am, that woman got on my bus and she said, sir, are you going downtown? And I said, no ma'am, this bus goes uptown. And that's when she stood there and said, well, are you making any stops along the way? And I said, no ma'am, this is an express bus, it goes straight through. And that's when she stood there and said, well, by any chance are you going by the dairy? And I stood up and said, no ma'am, but we are going by the ballpark. And that's when she turned her back to me and she said, oh shit, I'm on the wrong bus.
Three Hail Marys and two Our Fathers. Tom Gamboa.
But if you count the hits he got off Lamb, they would total 0. Yes, Dennis was the menace. Happy birthday, Dennis.
Appreciate it. Definitely getting this all squared away, but also the alumni and the coaches of St. John Bosco, and even my coach, John Treese, from my Legion days. I got to tell you a story about Johnny. We were in Los Alamitos then, and It's a Sunday, and I'm driving around with Johnny. He says, I hate to tell you this, but I think we may have to forfeit. I said, why? He said, we don't have enough guys. I said, really? He says, we don't have enough guys. He said, Kershaw said he doesn't want to play because he just got his hair styled. Don't want to put a cap on. So then Johnny goes, what is this world coming to? Don't these kids know that they're going to be working the rest of their life because they don't want to come out and play baseball? But anyway, he ended up really helping me out, Johnny. We had a lot of great times. He and Dave Warburton were my leading coaches and everything. So we had a great time at Los Alamitos. And when we were there, a lot of times, Don Hewitt used to be the equipment manager for the Rams. And a lot of times, some of the Rams would come around and sit in the stands, like Joe Scavelli. And, he was from New England, but he was an offensive lineman because Mr. Hewitt used to have access to the storage room at Los Alamitos High because they trained in Blair. So it's kind of a small world, but they would always show up to the game. It was really kind of cool in the summer before they started camp. And then also, what else was I going to say? Then I have my catcher, Mikey Mashika. Where are you, Mike?
Right here.
Yeah, I got to tell a little story about Mike.
Stand up for a second.
Come here, Mike. Yeah. We were at Whittier Narrows Park, and it was a night game. And we were playing Bosco Tech. That's kind of our rivalry, being St. John Bosco versus Bosco Tech. So anyway, Mr. Hilliard started getting nervous. It was bases loaded, I think it was, and the score was tied. So anyway, they said, who's pitching? Mr. Hilliard said, Lamb. So they said, Lamb? And they went, bah. So Mike tells the story that I threw, 9 pitches and struck out the side. And he took the ball, and he went, bah, on home plate. So we ended up winning that game in the league. Actually, we needed to win that game to clinch the division. And then Joe Pinocchio was my center fielder for a while there at Bosco. And one time, I know he gets mad about this, we were playing Cathedral. There was a ball hit to center field. And I'm in the dugout. Here comes Joe. He's trying to nail this guy at third base. He threw it in the brickyard. We're all looking. So somebody says, I guess he kind of airmailed that one. But Joe, he was great. He had his dad's restaurant there.
That was Bourbon Day.
Bourbon Day? Yeah, it was in the brickyard. It was funny. And then, what else I was going to mention? Bosco went fast, but everywhere I went, it was, it was always school first. The teachers were great. I mean, Father Leo was my ethics teacher. He was disciplinarian, but he was very fair. And, those were probably the best years, to start out my life, playing high school. And then I was fortunate enough, after my last game in high school, actually I got beat 10-0. In fact, I gave up 7 runs in the first inning. I don't think the ball left the infield. It was just one of those games. But anyway, I got drafted by the Cubs. My dad was looking in the papers, and the Orange County Register. We were out in Bellflower, and he was trying to figure out. He says, "Geez, that's weird. The Cubs have been interested in your, everything that you were doing." So anyway, he called the Orange County Register, and he asked, has the Chicago Cubs drafted? He says, yeah, there's this kid from St. John Bosco. I think he's from Los Alamitos. His name was Dennis Lamp. So I got drafted in the 3rd round. In fact, somebody told me I was like a pick before Ron Guidry, who ended up, the Yankees left-hander. He was like 28-3, I think, in '78, and he won the Cy Young. And then I was in the minor leagues, and God, it just seemed like it was going to take forever to make it to the major leagues. I was there like 6 years, but we went through some difficult times. I was with Mike Krukow last night at the Dodger game. He used to pitch for the Giants, and we were teammates in the minor leagues. Well, we were on the worst team in baseball. We were 37-97. We were 60 games out of first place. So anyway, we were talking about how bad we were. Everybody's saying, you guys make a lot of money in the major leagues, but I said, hey, we had a rule. We were so bad that we had to get our meal money by noon, or we didn't get it, and it was $5 back then. So anyway, some of the things that we went through in the minor leagues, and finally, things worked out. I ended up winning 10 out of 11 in AAA, and they made a trade, and I ended up getting called up. So I'm at Wrigley Field the first day, and I'm excited as hell, and I'm running and everything. It's almost like my feet weren't hitting the ground. I was so excited about being there.
So anyway, this fan at Wrigley Field's got the program. He yells at me. I'm running sprints. Hey, 47, who are you? And I didn't say anything. I kept running. So finally, Bill Bonham says to me, he says, this kid keeps saying, who are you? He says, why don't you just tell him buy a program? So I said, yeah, why don't you buy a program? He said, I did it. You're not in it. Yeah, my first game in the big leagues though was just fitting. My dad grew up, in Brooklyn, and then I'm pitching against the Dodgers. I never thought that would happen because I was there on the 18th and the Pirates were in town. Finally, somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, you're pitching tomorrow. And I said, really? Against the Dodgers. So anyway, I was nervous as heck that day. So anyway, the first time up, I get a base hit, my first at bat. So then the second time I came up, I think in like the third or fourth inning, I get my second at bat. And Steve Garvey turns to me and says, in the off season, I might need some instructions. You think you can help me out? So my first game, I got beat 5-1. But then after that, things started to fall into place. My second year, I was 7-15, but I got shut out 6 times that year. In fact, I think they scored 6 runs in 12 starts for me at one time. And one writer came up to me in Chicago, was trying to say, hey, aren't you going to get on the hitters? I said, I can't control the other pitcher. No matter how you look at it, they're not scoring your runs. So, well, you have to pitch against the other guys. So anyway, then I was with the Cubs for a while. Then I went over to the White Sox. And that was terrible because, they had Jimmy Pearsall and Harry Carey announcing the games. So we had a rule during the rain delays not to put the radio on, but we did anyway. So then they said, oh, here's Lamp. We got Lamp. He wasn't even good in AAA. And they had all these things. And then Harry Carey went over the free agent market. And I guess Doug Bird had pitched an inning in the third. And he gave up 15 runs at Fenway. So he's going over the free agency market. He says, oh, here's a guy from the Kansas City Royals, Doug Bird. 0-1 with a 150 ERA. There's going to be a lot of takers. And then he went into one of the pitchers on our team. It was Lynn McLaughlin. And he went, Lynn McLaughlin, ha, ha, ha. No, and he was just constantly on you. But as things went on, I went from winning ugly with the Cubs, with the White Sox, and then I ended up going into Toronto. And that was an experience because the first couple of years, I just was not good as a closer. But then I went 11-0, and no one's done that, I think, since 1926. So things started to fall into place for me. And, ended up going to Boston. Boston was a tough town. When I'd go out to the bullpen in August and they'd go, hey, Lamp, you're doing a good job so far. And I was like, and then they used to get on Jeff Reardon, the closer. They had all these placards of every 9th inning home run. There was Marullo, Mattingly, and all that. He says, oh, you forgot one, Mel Hall. You know what I mean? But he was a New England guy, but that was what we had to deal with day in and day out. And, and then finally, 92, I was with Pittsburgh. And we ended up getting very close to the World Series, but Cabrera got that base hit, and that was kind of the end of the story. But we had a lot of fun, and being at Bosco too. There was a lot of guys that helped me go to St. John Bosco. I had a guy, Tom Harris, and Jeff Willis. In fact, Jeff Willis was in high school with Tommy. He was a year older or two than me, and Ed Perry was our coach. I had the basketball coach was Bill Perry, but Ed Perry asked me what I played. I said the outfield and pitch. So anyway, Jeff Willis is going to me, hey, you got to tell the coach you've been playing the outfield the last 3 or 4 games. You got to tell me to pitch. So anyway, I had a JV game where I ended up, pitching and getting a chance, and that's what happens sometimes in life. You just need that chance to kind of do it. So things kind of fell in place, and Bosco was great. It was really a lot of fun. Growing up. Just going 10 miles to school, but, they were very fair. And now, basically 65 right now. But I'd like to introduce my fiancée, Jan. There's Jan.
Hey, Jan.
And then my son, Austin. Austin's right there. The cha-cha-cha man. And then, they're here today. And then Liz and Kevin.
That's my wife.
Yeah.
She won't have. So any questions? Anybody want to ask me a question, or about playing, or? Oh, tell them that story about change planes. Oh yeah, we had Willie Hernandez had a hard time with the English language. So anyway, we were stretching and exercising, and he said, "Hey coach, I can't do it, man. I got to change planes." And the guy goes, "He wants to change planes? What are you talking about? You got to keep doing your own." "No, doc, I got to change planes." "Oh, shin splints." Then we had a guy, George Bell. I mean, he was second to Madden in the MVP, but he was the only guy on the team that didn't know the names of his teammates. We had a pitcher named Steve. He would call him Dave Steve. And then, recently they had that situation where they had to testify in front of Congress. In fact, Brian's son Riley says that all the players were number 25. McGuire, Giambi, Barry Bonds, and who was the guy from Texas? Palmeiro. So I thought, God, that's kind of funny. But somebody asked me, they said, how come Sammy Sosa didn't testify? Well, I said they had a problem because they asked him, have you ever taken, he said, no, man, I haven't taken no stereos. Leon Durham. Yeah, and then one last one about, Leon Durham was so, what was it? He was like in the doghouse with the Cubs, and he had missed that ground ball in San Diego. So all of a sudden, Harry Carey's announcing the guy. He comes up to the plate. Here's Leon Durham, the strongest guy on the team. Just hit a 22-inch ground ball to the catcher. He could never hide. They always had that. But anyway, Lou, right?
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Anything else? I appreciate everything.
On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dennis. Happy birthday to you.
And many more on Channel 4.
Ready?
Yeah, all right.
First time. Get my inhaler out. Thanks.
I'm to 66.
All right.
All right, thank you. Dennis Lamp, 96 and 96 in his major league career, 857 strikeouts, and an ERA of 3.93. That's a terrific career for Dennis Lamp. All right, why don't you just get your ass up here and say it? Okay.
No, just a little bit. I'm working on my 4th year here at Bosco. Trying to get this program to where it should be. It was down for a long time, and I coached college for 17 years, and there isn't a better place in my 17 years or 21 years of coaching now that I'd rather be. This place has been unbelievable to me. The kids are phenomenal. The group that we keep on coming in every year, freshmen, and get to see them for 4 years have been great. But there are things and stuff that we have to, go around and make sure our program continues at the top level. And, we've been blessed with the help from St. John Bosco. But we always try to do more. So we are going to be having a golf tournament in November. It's going to be at Coto de Casa this year. It's going to be a great tournament. It's 25 threesomes, and the foursome's going to be a Major League Baseball player, which you'll find out that day who you're going to get. So we're trying to raise enough money because I'm taking my team to Arizona this year. We're going for a week in Arizona to play in a big tournament out there. Go to a couple of spring training games while we're there too, because it's in March. And then the week after that, we're in the National Classic at Cal State Fullerton, which is one of the top tournaments in the country. So we are moving in the right direction. We are going in the right places. We had 9 guys last year commit to Division I colleges. This year we have, with all our juniors, I think we have 4 or 5. And then David, who's a junior here, he's one of our 3 juniors that are already committed also to go to college. So we're working, getting the kids, moving them in a new direction of getting them, you know, out of Bosco and ready to go to college right away. And the kid, Cameron Ojeda, who was up here, is our starting catcher. He'll probably not make it to college. He'll probably be drafted within the first couple rounds this year. David Hayes, if you saw how big he was, he's not going to probably last too long. But that's where our program is. We are doing great, and you know, we love to have you guys out here. I know anybody who has played baseball, we have an alumni game every year. This year it will be in January, probably the 2nd or 3rd week of January. But we have food, drinks, all the young guys come out and play, but you guys, everything is all taken care of. We have it all catered. Bobby Bernardo cooks up a good meal for everybody. That's buffet style, and I always supply all the drinks because that's what I'm good at, supplying the drinks. So just go in the clubhouse, and in my office there's enough drink for everybody. Adult beverages, not Cokes. So, but I appreciate you guys inviting me here. Kevin, appreciate it. Dennis, happy birthday. It's great being involved with you guys again. And go Bosco.